Was popping. Oh man, I've wanted to do that forever. I feel like it works a lot better with the glasses. Maybe not. Maybe we gotta go like this. Maybe we gotta take them off. The smolder boulder, baby. You know what it is. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Trey's Trades. We have technical analysis on different stocks in the stock market, as well as potential buy, hold, or sell opinions on these given stocks. I'd like to preface by saying that I'm not a financial advisor nor expert, so take what I say with a grain of salt. Let's get into the video. Today, my friends, we're going to be talking about why AMC hasn't squeezed yet here so far today. I think there are a lot of people out there that are complacent, and I don't blame you. Like, I understand. It's frustrating because we thought we were going to get an instant gratification with AMC stock. We thought that it was just automatically going to run up to those triple digits, the quadruple digits. And even though I'm very, very satisfied with the growth that we've had, over the past few weeks up to where we're sitting now, and I think we're in a great spot, and I'm super bullish on AMC, more bullish than I've ever been. There might be people out there that are thinking, why am I still wasting my time? Why hasn't it done what it needs to do yet? And we're going to walk you through everything that's kind of unfolded and unraveled over the previous 2 months that has led us to where we are now. Per usual, I had to drop a freaking a gorilla to represent the gorilla gang out there, the freaking silverbacks, the orangutans, and the apes who are cooking with us. I absolutely appreciate it. This is Ozaru. So I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, anime nerd. I just had to represent the childhood, man. So hopefully you enjoy that. That's Vegeta right there, baby. So if that's your cup of tea, there you go. Anywho, let's just get into the video. So we're going to start off with this first run-up, and I want to be transparent and say that a lot of this DD that I put together has been a combination of my own, research and people from my Discord, on my personal Discord, and I am super appreciative for everybody out there. So credit goes to where credit's due, and there are some really intelligent people out there that helped me put this together, so props to you. I'm going to be referencing this as well as a couple other sources, so just being transparent there. So we started off in this $20 range, right? We had the high all the way up to $25 and some change way back here in the day. $25.80, right? Look at this super volatile period of time. Where did that volatility go, right? Well, first part of it is we had a lot of volume that pumped into the stock, which we don't have now, but that's not the meat and potatoes. That's not why we came from $25 down to $5 where we are now. It went down to 17, 18 bucks, and then it plummeted. Now, that is excluding some of the volatility that we saw. So you saw it up to 25 bucks, and some super volatile moves followed. We came down to 11.50, bounced back to 20 bucks, came down to 11.30, bounced back up to 23 bucks, dropped down to 6.79, came all the way back up to a height of 19.96, and then from there, that 17, 18, even maybe $19 range, I'm going to exclude that wick, we'll just say 17, 18, right? It just plummeted. It couldn't come back. It dropped off the face of the earth and consolidated between 5.50 and a height of about $6 and some change for about 2 trading weeks. Now, what was the reasoning behind that? Because apes held, and I'm telling you right now, apes held the stock. I can just read Reddit boards, I can read stock tweets, I can talk to the people in my personal Discord, the AMC only Discord. We know for a fact that the majority, there will be people, there's exceptions, there's asterisks, the majority of people held, right? Even though they were red, or if they were green, people were still holding the stock because they believe in the cause. What was the reasoning? Now, we know that we had Robinhood. Robinhood ended up cutting off buying, right? And you can argue why. I'm not a huge fan of Robinhood. We're not going to get into conspiracy theories, but they claimed it was collateral issues. I think there was more deeply rooted issues there. But nonetheless, Robinhood cut off buying. It causes massive sell-off. That's one piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle. And I think something that a lot of people aren't talking about, which is referenced here in the AMC Why It Hasn't Squeezed Yet, is this. Wanda converted Class B shares to Class A. Now, what does that mean, right? So for AMC specifically, the Class B shares were sort of the stock that was not available to the public. There's something called public float, right? So if we look up AMC on Market Watch, and we just currently look at what the public float looks like, I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. So if we look at Market Watch, we look at the shares that are available to the public, you have the public float and you have the shares outstanding. Now, Wanda's shares were not available to the public. These weren't available trading shares. The Class A common stock is what is available to retail investors, normal people like you and me. Well, Wanda decided to convert their shares to Class A stock. Now, what does that do, right? It increases the overall shares outstanding. It shifts that supply and demand. So if we were working with previously, a total amount of shares somewhere in that 370 million range. I'm going to reference this document that was put together for me, but I do believe that is what it was. 450 million, so 340 million actually. So we'll say 340 million, right? We'll say it was somewhere in that 340 million share range. Well, all of a sudden you've got Wanda that is converting, this is all Class A stock, by the way, Class A available to the public. Well, Wanda decides to convert their stock from Class B to Class A. Now, how much did that change the game by, right? Well, they increased the public float to about 450 million shares. That's not including synthetics, the counterfeits, right, that are circulating around. I do think there are a plethora of synthetics that are circulating, but nonetheless, it increased that public float to what we see here today, that 450 million number. And we'll come back here to Market Watch and show you exactly what I'm talking about. 450 million shares outstanding, 446 million of these are public float. So just a few aren't available for trading, a couple million shares, but in the grand scheme of things, you get the picture, right? That 450 million shares, what that does is it shifts the supply and demand, because that's how many Class A shares that we have now because of Wanda converting her shares, right? Not her shares, their shares, right? Now, this was information that took a long time to get translated into databases, right? So this wasn't available to the public for a very long time until the CEO confirmed they had 450 million shares. I don't know why I had two M's there. 450 million shares total circulating of this Class A stock. Now, what does that do? You increase the supply. And we've shown you this graph a million times. We'll show you again. If you increase supply, you shift the demand, right? So if this is supply and this is demand, this is high, this is low, high, low, high, and low, right? You shift this supply line to the left, you make it a little higher, you're going to decrease the demand. That convergence is lower on that supply and demand chart. So that's what happened right here, right off the bat. When you convert those Class A shares, you're diluting the stock, right? So that's what initially happened. And this happened, around that same time when we see this massive sell-off. If you remember, we'll reference back to some articles that were posted regarding, Wanda converting their shares. This was posted back on February 8th, 2021. AMC major stakeholder Wanda converts stock to allow for sale amid Wall Street bets frenzy. Maybe they took advantage of the fact that the stock price was trading so high. They didn't think it was going to go much higher. Whatever it may be, this is what happened. If you look back on February 8th, right, what day was this? That would have been right around here. And this is when you see the stock really having some issues, right? It just cannot recover. You've got another article right here, right? This was posted on March 15th, talking about why Wanda Group is trimming its holdings in AMC Theater Chain. We'll talk about this more down the road, but my purpose and point being that Wanda converted their shares and this diluted the stock and caused what you see here, which is that monumental long-term consolidation and drop-off from that major $25 range that you see right here, right? So that's a big piece of the puzzle and something that I think people need to take into consideration. Now, on top of that, they sold a lot of shares into the market. They sold, if we reference this document right here, taking a quick peeky weeky, as you guys always say. Let's see if we can find that. Give me 1 second. Okay, so here we go. We don't know the exact number of shares held. I'm sure you can calculate it out, but they were previously 23.08% shareholders of AMC's outstanding shares, and they reduced their stake to 9.8% as of March 3rd. That is a drastic shift, right? So now they own 44 million shares of Class A common stock, which is a much different scenario than we see with the current stock price. So they likely sold off a huge amount of Class A common stock because they more than cut in half their total position in AMC down to what it is. So on February 8th, that article was posted, and you see that it just cannot recover because all of a sudden you've got this, not only an increase in supply, but an increase in availability to supply. When you sell, it drops the stock price. It could not recover. You see that it is sitting where it is right now, right? It's circulated there at that $5.50 range, consolidating for a long period of time. That plays into the equation, my friends, and I think that's a huge reason why it took so long for the stock to make some moves. So just to give you a brief recap, right? They converted from Class B to Class A up to the common stock. The Class B is not available to the public. The Class A is. That's the common stock. And they sold, which shifts that supply and demand chain, the supply and demand chart, and drops the price with that double whammy. Converted, sold, both things affect the stock price, right? Float changed from 340 million to 450 million, 23% order down to 9.8%. That affected the stock price for a long time. And you might be thinking to yourself, is this bad news? Does this mean the squeeze potential is gone? And the answer to you is no. There's no more damage that can be done. Now, what do I mean by that, right? So them being a 9.8% shareholder stake in the company, them holding about 44 million total shares of Class A common stock. Well, that's nowhere near as much potential to do harm that already has existed in the stock in the first place, right? It'd be a drop in the water in comparison to what happened previously. Now, it would affect the stock price, right? I'm not going to lie to you. If they sold all 44 million shares all at once, that'd be a pretty big deal. That would affect the stock price without a doubt. But at that point, we've already had apes that have held the stock price and moved it up to where it is now off of more selling and the fact that they converted that Class B to the Class A. So initially, maybe short term, you'd have a slight drop in price. You'd have an availability increase in the shares that are available for trading, but it's not going to do anywhere near as much damage as that Class B to Class A conversion, which we did see that increase that overall supply and demand chain, right? So that changed the picture, and that's a big piece of the news that we need to consider. Now, We're going to move on to short pressure, right? What am I talking about here? The short pressure, where is this gone? Because a lot of people think that the short pressure is just not there with AMC right now. And I understand where you're coming from, right? If you look at AMC short interest on Fintel, the numbers are, it might scare you. It might scare you a little bit. We look at AMC short interest, it says that the previous day, which makes no sense to me, of short volume ratio was 8%. The total share availability, 1 million, which was higher than it used to be previously. And the short borrow fee rate is 1.33%, right? We come over here to daily short sale volume. We look at the short sale volume on the day, just as a comparison, 25.4 million compared to the green volume of 40.5 million on the 19th. So, I mean, that's pretty decent high short volume. And I'm honestly really confused as to why there's such a big discrepancy between this and Fintel. You know, obviously Fintel only takes the short data from limited exchanges, but you know, you get the picture here. Use this not as a hard data point, but more so as a reference, right? An idea of sentiment and what's going on in the stock. And the fact being that the short data and the shorting is still taking place, which is affecting the stock price. Now, circulating back to my main point, right? I always click on the wrong tab. Circulating back to my main point. Wanda increased the supply, which increased the amount of share availability for shorting as well, right? And this comes into lenders. We know that there's been an increase in lenders. 6 lenders has moved up to, I've seen different numbers. I've seen both 9 and I've seen 11. We're going to assume the worst and say that it is 9. So 9 lenders, and if they all are allowing X amount of shares to be borrowed, well, you increase that, it allows more short availability and lending to go out to shorters, bigwigs, the freaking hedgies out there that are trying to screw down and steal our tendies. And they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I'm telling you why. Because we have held the battle and we're starting to shift the momentum, and the fulcrum is coming back here towards the apes. BlackRock, right? What's going on with BlackRock? Well, BlackRock is a major stakeholder in AMC and GameStop, right? And you might be thinking this is good news. And it is great news, because companies like BlackRock and Vanguard don't buy into companies that they're not going to make money on. They are a well-established, financial institution. They are there to make cash and nothing else, nothing more, nothing less, right? Well, there's something that can happen here, and it's buying and share lending, right? So what do I mean by that? So if BlackRock, hypothetically speaking, owns X amount of shares, right? They own them. They can do with them whatever they want. They can sell them or they can borrow them. Now, where am I going with this? You get the freaking picture, guys. I'm going to pull this up and show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is from Reddit. Take it with a grain of salt, but I'm going to tell you exactly what this is saying. Is they hold a pretty decent, this is just, GameStop as a reference, but it's the same situation with AMC. They hold a decent stake of both of these stocks, and they're able to borrow them to companies that are shorting the stocks, such as Citadel or Melvin Capital, whoever it may be, whoever these big institutional firms are. They're able to lend out the shares. Now, what you might be thinking, well, shoot, how are we ever going to recover from this? Why would they do that if they're trying to make cash? And you should just say that to yourself twice, because why would they do it if they were trying to make cash? They're trying to make cash, right? They're not buying those shares simply to lend them. That's not the only reason why. Think about it like this. If you've got a casino, right? And you go to a casino and they spot you $1 million freaking dollars. The casino says, hey, here you go, Melvin. We're going to give you $1 million. You play with it. Do whatever you want. This is the short rate that we've got for you, right? This is how much you're going to owe us for borrowing that $1 million and playing with that cash. They can do whatever they want with it, or they can take that $1 million and just sit on it. They can do nothing, or they can put it on a table and try to make cash on it, right? You get my point here. Well, Melvin goes and they blow it. They lose all that $1 million. And the casino over here, well, they still get their money back, right? Plus interest. And the casino says, you know what? It's okay. And you can think of the casino being equivalent to BlackRock, right? So just keep following me here. The casino is BlackRock, and BlackRock says, you know what? It's all good that you lost that. I don't know why they did that. It's all good that you lost that money. Guess what? We got another $1 million here for you. We got another $1 million, and this is, I'm not saying that it's going to pay you back, but it should give you an opportunity to try again. Try again, right? They're down really bad right now. And on paper, these are just hypothetical losses, right? They could come back. They could come back from this if they go down to, let's just say, $100 million or $100,000, right? 100K. And they come back and they say, shoot, I only have 100K in chips right now. This is only paper losses, but man, this is looking really rough. They come back and they say, you know what? Let's spot you another $1 million and try and get you back on your feet. They lose it again. They're back down to that 100K off of a $2 million borrow, right? They come back again. They say, hey, here's another $1 million. Try again. They don't care because they know they're going to get their money. There's obligations that are held up by the consumer and the lender. Melvin has to pay back that $1 million that was borrowed from the casino, regardless of whether or not they lose that money or not. They come back a third time with another $100,000 remaining. So they have $100,000 out of that $3 million borrow coming from the casino. You get my point here. BlackRock playing that game in the short term, right, is going to prevent the squeeze. You're totally right, because you're increasing the short share availability. You're increasing the amount of time. You're decreasing that short borrow fee rate because you're increasing the amount of shares that are available for borrowing. If there's a lot of shares available to borrow, that is going to decrease that short borrow fee rate. It's a tangible equilibrium that comes in play. Low share availability means high short borrow fee rate. And I anticipate you're going to see that short borrow fee rate start to go up again because, as we all know, with more shares on the market, there's more short share availability. We have more lenders such as BlackRock, Vanguard, whoever it may be, that are lending out these shares for shorting. Eventually, they're going to run dry, guys. Eventually, they're going to run dry. So right now, hypothetically speaking, let's just say that they're $5 million and it is all being lent out to Melvin Capital, the freaking hedgie. And Melvin is down to his last freaking $100,000, and the casino says, you know what, man? You are cut off. You're cut off. And you have X amount of time to pay us back. Let's just say it's 10 days, whatever it might be, right? You owe us this money. You need to get it to us plus that freaking interest. And if they don't, they're going to find ways to make that money back, right? They're going to come over to and take their car. They're going to call up the person that owns their homes and say, hey, you need to put this house on the market so we can get our freaking cash. And they can do it because they have obligations to it. We'll liquidate your house. We'll put your house on, we'll sell your house off, whatever we got to do, right? They're going to get that cash back. And that's the same thing that's happening with BlackRock. They're playing the double dip game. They're making cash two ways. They get both feet in both ponds. And it's really intelligent, honestly. That's my personal opinion. It's a hypothesis, but that's my common sense of what I'm making out of the situation right now. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're borrowing. It just delays and honestly spring loads the inevitable in my eyes. So it is possible that BlackRock, Vanguard, some of these major institutional holders that are buying and holding AMC stock are actually lending it out, which is going to affect that short interest data, make it look as if there's not a lot of pressure on short positions, because in the short term, there's not. And that's totally okay, right? That doesn't change the fact that we don't have a short squeeze on our hands. What we do know is the stock price has been continuously climbing, right? Look at this. Look at what the stock price has been doing. Now, true, you could scalp short. You can make, a couple cents off of some incremental movements and make back some of your losses, but not so many losses that you're coming back from that $5, $6 range. I will tell you that I guarantee you shorts have been doubling down the whole way up. They've been maybe making a little bit of marginal cash on the way up, but not anywhere near as much as their losses on this climb from $5 to 14 and some change at the height. I mean, think about that. That's a 200% growth in a matter of a couple of weeks, which is insane. We have infinite upside, right, with the losses, with the gains here, but they have infinite downside. They can lose as much money as this thing is willing to freaking rock. And the healthy growth that we've been seeing is just setting it up to do that, guys. So that is monumental. Now, that's something I want to point out. The float, as we know, has gone up. We've gone up to 450 million shares, which delays that short squeeze that we've been talking about. It takes off a little bit of pressure in the short term, not in the long term. Apes have been continuing to buy and hold. And that is literally the entire equation besides the gamma squeeze. Obviously, the gamma squeeze options expiring in the money does play into the equation, but we're not talking about that here today. Synthetic shares. This is also another piece of it, and what I'm talking about is failure to delivers, right? So the failure to delivers, let's say that you have some options expire in the money. They don't have the collateral to match that. The market makers, the clearing houses, they don't have the collateral to match those shares that they need to purchase for the option holders, the contract holders of some calls, right? If they don't have it, they get FTDs or IOUs. IOUs go out into the market. This plays into the equation, along with synthetic shorts, naked shorts that go into the market, right? You've got probably synthetic longs in the market because there are short positions that are sold with IOUs, not including BlackRock, whoever it may be, that are holding synthetic longs, right? This all dilutes the stock price, which is increasing the supply. Honestly, we have a 450 million share float, a public float available, right? According to paper. My hypothesis, and what this guy's come to the conclusion of, I honestly think it's higher. The person who wrote together this DD thinks it's about 60 to 80 million shares in synthetic shares floating in the market. I think it's more in the realm of 100 to 150 million shares. My reason being, if you look at the total volume on the day, right, considering how many retail investors and institutional investors are holding long on the stock, you know that there is a 450 million share public float on the stock, but yet on a daily basis, we see anywhere between 50 million to a couple hundred million shares traded, right? There was one day when we saw 1.2 billion shares traded on the market, and that is not possible. You want to tell me that the entire public float was exchanged hands 3 times over? It's not possible. And that tells me the entire equation is that there is likely a crap ton of synthetic shares. And I'm being conservative. I'm not being liberal, saying there's 100 to 150 million shares floating synthetic in the market. I am being really, really conservative saying this. And I think that's a huge piece of the equation that we need to keep into consideration. So increased supply would increase that share availability for shorting, right? So when you think about utilization, according to Ortex, right? If we just pull up Ortex really quick, what is this talking about? Well, it's that total share availability for shorting, right? The utilization sitting at 84.9%. It's gone down, and my hypothesis being that it's because there's more short availability to the public, right? That cost to borrow has gone down for the same exact reason. So if we were to look at this again, right, you've got increased share availability, decreased cost to borrow percentage, decreased utilization. All of those things have happened, which would meet our guidelines and the things that we think are happening at this current moment in time. But wait, this is a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. And I've connected a couple of dots with a couple different DDs, and this is all, it's honestly just one big spider web of connecting the dots. Webull, what's going on with Webull? What's going on with other brokerage firms? I know personally that I noticed that Webull does not have a short button anymore for AMC. Now, what am I talking about? You've got buy, you've got sell, and there used to be a short button over here. And to show you what I'm talking about, right, if we come over here to, let's just say CLVS. Well, you can't do it on CLVS, but DBI, right? You can short DBI. That pops up right here as a shortable stock. You can't do that with AMC. And that will typically happen if there's not share availability for a stock to be shorted. As an example, if you look at CLVS, right? CLVS has a very, very, very high short interest. We're going to come up here and look at CLVS short interest and see what the numbers are looking like. I can never type. Here we go. CLVS short interest. What do we got? Oh, I typed it wrong. There we go. CLVS short interest. Anywho, you look at this. It's got very, very low short availability. 70,000, which is incredibly low. That means that the majority of short available shares are currently being held by short positions. Well, because of that, there's likely not enough shares to short available to brokerage firms such as Webull, so they take that short button off of the options. And they'll do that for any stock that there's not enough shares to short with, right? And what is that telling you guys? Well, my hypothesis, and I think what most people would say, is that the shorting taking place is naked shorting. Now, what I think this is really incredible and worth pointing out to you is this email right here. Webull's reply when I asked how AMC wasn't shortable when trying to get the interest percentage. We're winning. Check this out. AMC is not shortable now, thanks. How is it not shortable? Please explain. If we are not able to locate shares to short the security, will be listed as not shortable. We do not support naked shorting or shorting with synthetic shares, phantom shares, shares that don't exist. And this is likely happening within a lot of brokerage firms, Webull being only freaking one of them, guys. So that's monumental. And that's something that you guys really need to pay attention to is we are winning the game. We just got to wait it out, right? The institutional investors out there have a lot more availability to pull strings than us retail investors do. And that's factual. We all know that. And that reflects in the stock price, right? We've seen the manipulation take place and we know what's going on here. But they can't play that game forever. Eventually, it will come crashing down as all things do. Market value will eventually reach the sentiment of the market, right? They do not make up the entire market. They're a piece of the market. Retail investors and institutional investors, they make up the majority. We have more buying than selling. We have usually, I've shown this resource before, but it's somewhere between 94 and 96% buying and only about 4 to 6% selling, which tells you the equation, guys. The majority of the selling pressure has been coming from short positions. So that's massive. We're going to wrap this up, right? Give you a little bit of a rundown. The final piece. We've got a crap ton of failure to delivers. The failure to delivers meaning that there are shares that are not being purchased. You've got options expiring in the money, gamma squeeze rolling over and over because of this buying pressure coming into the stock, which is bleeding out these short positions, right? We haven't had the squeeze yet for the reasons that I disclosed. But the good news being that we can't have Wanda do more damage, right? We can't, unless they end up doing that 500 million share dilution, which we've talked about. I personally voted against it. It's entirely up to you guys. Unless that happens, this scenario is sitting right where it is right now. And that is a long ways down the road, guys. They don't vote on it until May 4th, and it can't be enacted immediately. That'd be something that would take time to take place. So that's huge. The float is what it is at this point, right? It's not going to change, at least for the next, midterm foreseeable future. That percentage borrow fee rate is going to eventually start going up again. As those short shares that are now available to the public based off of, BlackRock, Vanguard, Wanda, all this sort of stuff, as they get scooped up, that short borrow fee rate is going to go back up. It's going to put more pressure on those short positions, holding that day over day over day, which is going to increase that short pressure to cover the position and cause a short squeeze. Now, what is that squeeze going to look like? I've seen a bunch of different hypotheses. I personally think it's going to be similar to a Tesla sort of run. Not comparing Tesla and AMC in the least bit, not the fundamentals of it, but the price action, right? I think it's going to be something very, very similar to this, where you saw a very long-term push where you've got gamma squeezing, options expiring in the money, which drives price action because they need to be hedged for by the clearinghouses, as well as short positions getting squeezed and doubling down on top, hoping that it goes down. That doesn't. They cover again. They double down on the top. It doesn't. They cover again. It goes over and over and over and over. I think you're going to see a very similar situation as what Tesla did, right? I don't think it's going to be as crazy volatile and hard to predict as it was this time around. It's going to be very, very smooth. My reason being, apes are holding. They're holding. Unless all of a sudden one day you go from $20 to 1,000, I see no way. Unless we have a day where you go up 2,000, 3,000%, the people are just going to keep holding because as human beings, we are run by two things, and it is fear and greed. FOMO, man. It's insane. It's insane. FOMO and FUD, fear, uncertainty, of doubt, right? Those all play into the market. And if we have the same slow, steady growth where we just get set up, I really, really do truly believe that AMC is going to do what we need it to do, my friends. And that is the wrap up on the AMC situation as it's sitting right now. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like. It really does help support the channel. And consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content like this. I do post videos on AMC every day except for the weekends, maybe once over the weekend. And lastly, I have an affiliate link in the description box down below for Webull. This is version 4 for the desktop. Great platform that allows you to start trading at 4 a.m. the pre-market all the way up until 8 p.m. in the after hours. If you use my link, you get 2 free stocks with a $100 deposit. I'll receive a free stock. Great way to support the channel, my friends. And if you're not interested, that is totally fine. I just appreciate your support by taking the time to watch my videos. I also have a link to the merch store if you want to pick up a George W. hoodie, a couple of mugs, some stickers, some posters, a hat, whatever you want, and a link to my own personal Discord. It's $5 a month for the Patreon. Absolutely awesome. Great community of investors, a lot of great research, long-term stocks, mid-term, short-term. We've got tax information, whatever you want. It's all there for you. That's what I've got for you guys today. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching the video, my friends, my family, my fellow Gorilla Gang. See you on the next one, and peace.